such a great group this afternoon. I'm Caneta Hankins, and it's my pleasure to again welcome you to the Century Farm Dinner and to the 15th anniversary of the Williamson County Fair. I believe that this event has been going on for about 12 years now, and one of the reasons that it started was because of Judy Hayes, and I just want to recognize Judy Hayes, whose productive work across the county is such a wonderful thing that we all enjoy, and such a great legacy and heritage that she brings to the county. I know it was one of her ideas that we have a Century Farm event at the Williamson County Fair, and I want you to thank her today for that vision and for helping us to carry it out. She has attended every one of the Century Farm events here at Williamson County since we began, and we're happy that she's here with us today. Judy, thank you very much. Now, people always ask me when I'm talking about Century Farms during the year, well, how many Century Farms are there in Williamson County? This year, there are 36. Now, we've lost 2 this year. I'm sorry to say, but it happens. The Moran Farm and Cedar Lane 1 were sold out of their families. But the good news is we have a new Century Farm certified this year. And we also have 2 that are celebrating 150 years this year. So that is so exciting. I know of about 4 more farms, and some of you may know of others that are eligible to be Century Farms. If you know them, encourage them to get that paperwork in. You know it's not that difficult. So let's get a few more in. I'd love to see us up over 40. That would be a really nice number to have in Williamson County. It really would be. Okay, and let's get right to giving these signs. I love seeing these 150-year signs lined up here, 3 of them. That's so exciting. And we're going to start with our new farm, the Poynor Farm. And is Robbie Poynor here? Has he made it? He's going to give us just a little bit of history about the Poynor Farm. Robbie, if you would come on up, please.
I didn't really. I've got 4 generations here tonight that we all still live on the farm, and I've got my 2 kids, Haley and Will, and my mother and father, Douglas and Claudine, and my grandmother, Irene Poynor. We all still live on the farm. Main thing we do on the farm is really all 4-H based. Kids show everything. We raise shorthorn cattle for showing and boar goats for showing, and then we just run cattle. We don't have a big operation, but we raise registered cattle just for show. It's been in our family. This will be the ninth generation, and it's been bits and pieces and parts, and it's changed from family to family, but it's all stayed in the family, from marriage to different family members. And we have 57 acres now that we put back together, and I think there's about 40 acres still that Grandma owns and Mom and Daddy owns. I don't know. I mean, that's pretty much all we do on the farm. We don't row crop or anything. It's all hillside farms, so cattle is all we do. And honeybees. We have a lot of honeybees. My wife's a beekeeper, so it's a good place for bees. Yeah, send everybody. Down here.
And I'm going to ask another special guest, Lynn Williams, with the Tennessee Department of Agriculture. She is the fair administrator and the Century Farm liaison, and she's been with the Century Farm program since it began, and she is going to present the Poynor farm with their sign, and I'm going to see if I can make a photograph. Okay, it's so exciting to get a newly certified Century Farm, particularly one that's been around since 1824. All right, next, as I mentioned, we've got 2 Century Farms that have reached 150 years. So between them, that's 300 years of farming. That's a lot of years of hard work. So Elizabeth Tidwell, who just married into the Linton Little family, is going to come up and say a few words about the County Line Farm. And I believe you're a teacher at Page High School, is that right? Yeah, okay. Well, you're kind of... All right. Come on, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Yeah, I rushed from my classroom to make this. It always signals I feel like Century Farm Dinner always signals the beginning of the school year. So it's kind of bittersweet, I guess. But I'm going to read the County Line Farm's history written by my mother-in-law for this, Mary Little. So Silas Linton, my husband's great-great-grandfather, was the original owner of the land that we now own. He was the father of 8 children who, upon his death, divided up the land. His son, Joseph Hooper Linton, inherited the land that we now call the County Line Farm. And this name was chosen by his wife, Ida McPherson Linton, because part of the land is in Davidson County and part of it is in Williamson County, the total acreage being 250. So the line runs between the family's 2 barns. So my in-laws are fortunate enough to pay taxes in both Davidson and Williamson County. Much of that land was originally timber and had to be cleared for pasture, and Ida said that she would stand in the log house and be unable to see her husband Hooper in the field across the road because he'd be standing in a hole caused by removal of tree stumps. The Big East Fork Creek flows leisurely through the lowest part of the farm, making it an ideal spot for livestock. The log house on the farm was built in 1869, and 5 generations of Lintons have called this home. Obvious improvements have helped keep the dwelling habitable, such as electricity, running water, heat and air, though my husband Andrew did not enjoy air conditioning in his lofted bedroom until he was in high school. Spring water with gravity flow was used until around 2000 when they got city water, but my mother-in-law Mary still uses spring water on her outside plants and flowers. And I know that my husband Andrew enjoyed the spring water for washing cars with no water spots. Fields have been plowed and sown with various crops, and timber's been harvested for the building of the homes and barns, in addition to bringing in extra revenue. In 1927, Hooper and Ida built another home in front of the log house, and all of the trim work came from the chestnut trees on the property. In the late 40s and early 1950s, my husband's grandfather, Lloyd Linton, milked cows and sold the milk to the Franklin Cheese Factory, putting the milk in cans on the side of the road to be picked up. My mother and father-in-law recently renovated and moved into this home that we call the Big House. Horses, mules, donkeys, goats, sheep, chickens, ducks, turkeys, geese, pigs, and cows have all roamed these fields and helped it become what it is today. Currently, cattle enjoy the pastures and spring water, while their mammoth donkeys, Josie and Jasmine, share the acreage with their Australian Shepherd mix, Wrigley. As a history teacher, it's been an honor to marry into a family whose roots run so deeply in Williamson County, and we hope our family's future generations will follow in the footsteps of our ancestors and enjoy the richness of that land.
Put it on. Thank you.
And congratulations to the Lintons, the Littles, and County Line Farm. And our best goes to Ben Little, Mary's husband, who has been in the hospital and just couldn't make it this evening. So our best to Ben. All right, next is Crystal Valley Farm, which is out in the eastern part of the county, Nolensville, actually getting close to Rutherford County. Almost. Hard to know, yeah, hard to know. So, who's coming up? Are you coming up? Very good. Very good. John, is that right? John McCanless, the McCanless family.
I'll give you a real quick flyover of the history of our farm, but then I want to take a second and encourage everybody about keeping these farms. if you look back in the records, a lot of the land in Williamson County was given to officers of the Continental Army after the Revolutionary War, and then that land was distributed out. And I don't know all the details about how our family got in there, but I do know that the original officer was a Colonel Sumner, and he did not make it to Williamson County, but his wife and children did, and they are buried on our farm. And a bunch of the other folks who lived in the decades following that, before the Civil War. It's on a big hill called Sumner's Knob, and we are so close to Rutherford County, you can go stand up there. You're in Williamson County, but you can see all of Rutherford County. You can see all the way to the Nissan plant. Our farm it's a lot of limestone, a little bit of soil, which is like most of the farms in the eastern part of Williamson County. My nephew Todd leases the farm now and runs it, and the farm at its smallest was 190 acres, and it's now about 1,100 acres. And we take a lot of the produce from Walmart that doesn't get used, and we put that out for the cows to eat, and I think that's a good thing. It doesn't smell real good, but it's a good thing. We also feed a lot of the corn after Jack Daniels has finished manufacturing their products with it. And that's a good thing, because that keeps it from going into landfills and other areas. I want to encourage everybody on keeping these farms, because and we are getting a lot of pressure right now from Nashville. But I want to encourage you for 3 reasons. The first is the heritage, because when these farms leave agricultural production and go into development, they never go back to agriculture again. And the very nature of what makes this county one of the most beautiful places in the earth is lost. And if we don't hang on to that, and I know it's tough, but if we don't hang on to it, nobody else will care enough to do it. That's number one. Secondly, the world's population is growing. Right now, our population is about 7 billion. By 2050, it'll be 9.5 billion. I have spent the last 20 years of my life consulting to large agricultural, agribusiness companies and large consumer products companies. With the increase in consumption of protein and the growth in the world's population, between now and 2050, agricultural production globally has to double. And you got to do it with less land. You're going to have to use less pesticides, less herbicides, less fertilizer, and you're going to have less water. Every acre of production of arable land that goes out of production will never come back. And right now, people don't care, but in 20, 30, 40 years, people will care greatly. The third reason is because of the environment. If you cover everything over with pavement, where does all the waste products go from cars and animals and everything else? Right now, those farms are the buffer of what keeps the water pure, of what keeps the environment clean. The other thing about the environment is producing food close to where it's consumed is going to become more and more and more important in the decades ahead. And our ability to save this land and produce food here and reduce the carbon footprint is critical, and it's critical to the quality of life for everybody in Middle Tennessee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, and all God's people said, Amen. Thank you. Before she gets away, I want y'all to say hello to Terry Kimball, the only paid person with the fair, but she's not paid nearly enough for all she does. Thank you, Terry. All right. Let's see. I think I'm going to change the program up just a little bit. And I'm going to have Mark Stewart of Aurelia Acres come up. And he's going to entertain us for a few minutes. Now, he was telling me that as a storyteller, a teller of tall tales, that they won't let him come back to Mule Day anymore because he's won so many times. But he's going to come and talk to us about mules, is it, Mark?
Howdy. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad you all are too. Yeah, I went to Mule Day in 2018, and they declared me the champion liar. And they told me this year, no, you can't come back. So I didn't go back. They said, you can come tell, you just can't compete. Well, I'll tell to people like this, but not like that down there. They don't let me compete. I'm from Aurelia Acres. My great-grandfather and his brother bought the land grant in 1810, and I'm not sure, about 1,000 acres or so. It's kept being divided as the generations came off, and I now have the last 60 acres of Patton land on Patton Road. If you've been to Arrington Vineyard, you were on some granddaddy's land. I'm a native of Tennessee, but I lived approximately 50 years of my life in Alabama. But I came back up here to retire. I'm very fortunate that I could come back because I couldn't afford to come back if I hadn't been here since 1810. But as a boy, every month to 6 weeks, we'd come from Fort Payne, Alabama, and I would spend the weekend. In the summer, I'd come spend 2 or 3 weeks. Across the creek from where Aurelia Acres, my uncle, Will, had a farm, which is now out of the family, but the barn's still standing there, 82 years old, just like me, and about the same shape than I am. He had 2 sons, both older than I was, Billy and Joe, and I would spend a lot of time over there, particularly in the summer. And I loved the mules. I loved to ride a mule. It let me drive the wagon with the mules. They ran away one time, but I still loved them. And I decided I wanted a mule. And I asked Uncle Will one day, could I have a mule? And he said, Mark, you live in town. You can't have a mule. And I said, well, Uncle Will, we got a 2-car garage and only 1 car, and we got a big yard. No. Besides that, mule expensive. Good mule gonna run you $300, $500, $700. You got that kind of money? I said, well, no, sir. Well, you can just forget about having a mule. I didn't. I kept dwelling on it. And I remembered on down Patton Road used to go a horseshoe from Horton Highway back to Horton Highway down around Kirkland. Now it runs into Cox Road and it goes all the way around to Kirkland. Cox Road used to end in my Uncle Carl's driveway. If you kept going across, you'd run right up his driveway. But anyhow, I went on down that road. It was rock, crushed rock. And as you turned the corner down there, just beyond where Uncle Carl's was, there was a curve going towards McDaniel Road, and there was a big ditch down to the right. And I was walking along, and the rock moves to the edge of the road, and I was walking along there, the tightrope walker at the circus. And I walked on around that road, and as I was getting around, I looked over there, and there's a pretty green field over there. And it had all the orange balls all over it. And I thought, well, that sure is pretty. I wonder what that is. And so I went on and to the farmer that I knew had some ewes down there. And I walked up on his porch and knocked on the screen door. And he came to the door and said, howdy, son. I said, howdy. He said, what can I do for you? I says, well, I was wondering if you might have a mule that maybe I could buy. He looked at me and said, son, Good mule going to cost you $300, $500, $700. You got that kind of money? I said, no, sir. Well, I'm sorry, son, but I thought maybe you might have a real young one or a real old one that might be cheaper. No, son, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And I turned and started off the porch and remembered that field down there with all those orange balls. And I said, mister, and he said, yeah. You know that field down there on the curve with the orange balls in it? He said, yeah, I know. I said, what are those orange balls? He said, son, those things about, you don't know what those things are? I said, no, sir, I don't. Where are you from, boy? And I said, well, I live in Fort Payne, Alabama. Well, no wonder you don't know what those things are if you live in Fort Payne. Son, those things are mule legs. Now, you can't afford a mule, but you might be able to afford a mule leg. I said, well, how much are they? And he said, how much have you got? And I reached in my pocket, my shorts, and I pulled out $1.74. Son, you are in luck. Today, the price of mule legs, including tax, is $1.74. So he took my money, he went down to the field, he came back with this nice big orange ball, had about 2 inches of green stem on it. He gave it to me and I started off with it. He said, hey son, you know what to do with that mule leg? I said, well, no. He said, you ever seen chickens sit on the nest and hatch eggs? I said, well, yes, sir. He said, well, son, you're going to have to sit on that egg till it hatches. So I got back in that barn I mentioned a while ago. I put that mule leg over there in the hay, piled the hay up around it, got me a gunny sack and put on it. And every day, I'd go out there and sit for a while. You know, boards in the barn were about that wide, but there would be a crack in between. So there was enough light to sit and look at the Progressive Farmer or the Sears and Roebuck catalog, about the only things that were around to look at. And I went out there every day for a week or so, and then I got thinking, well, I wonder how long it takes a mule leg to hatch. So I took off the gunny sack and I started scraping the hay back to see if I could see where maybe it was getting ready to hatch, and I sort of rolled it over and down on the bottom there was a brown spot. I thought, law me, that man done sold me a rotten mule leg. I didn't figure he meant to cheat me or anything, so I picked it up and I decided I'd take it back and either get me another one or get my money back. So I'm going down the road, get to that curve. I'm not trying to walk on the tightrope, but my feet slip on the rock this time, and I drop my mule leg, and it rolls down that ditch amongst the rocks and the briars that are down there at the bottom. And when it hit the bottom, you know what happened? It burst open, and a little mule jumped out. He was about that long, had big, long mule leg ears. His front legs were sort of straight, his back ones were bent, and he had a white tail, short. Now, mules have long hair, tails, and I thought, well, I guess they have to get older before they get that long tail. They have to grow it. And so I started down there to get my mule, and about that time, he started to run. And I started to run, and the briar started catching and tore my T-shirt and catching my shorts and scratching me, and I stopped. But I'd been hollering, come to your pappy. Hey, I'm your pappy. Come back, come back. He didn't listen. He kept going. I went back up to the top of the road, top of the ditch on the edge of the road, and sat back down, and I'll admit that I shed a few tears. And then I got to thinking about it. That mule was so fast, I don't think I'd ever be able to catch him to ride. And he was so small, it'd probably take too many years for him to grow up for him to ride anyway. And now I live on a farm. I got a barn with stalls in it, but I still don't have a mule. Thank y'all.
We have a little public service announcement. There is a BMW with Indiana tags, 758 VAS. Need to move your car. I don't think that's any of these folks, but we'll just check. If you know somebody who drives this car, But I'm pretty sure everybody here has Tennessee tags. Okay? Here you go. Thank you, Mark. And I have a mug up here for you so that you can stay up nights drinking coffee and thinking up a few more stories. Thank you. All right. I think we have another book giveaway courtesy of Rick Warwick and the Williamson County Historical Society. Rick, you want to come up and say a word or two about this year's edition?
Well, I'm glad to be back on the fairgrounds, and it's a great pleasure for me to give you a copy of a book that I did last fall, and it's called At Home with Working Folks in Williamson County. Most of the books that have been written about Williamson County always feature the plantations and the grand houses. Well, this book takes care of the working class folks, and I'm glad to do it, and so we're going to give each farm a book. And if you want me to sign it, I'll be glad to. It may devalue it, but I'll be glad to do it anyways.
And if, as I call the farm name, if you want to send some representative up to get a book, that would be great. So, Mark, if you'll come up and get your copy, and let me get your mug as well. And bag end, is Susan with us today? I don't believe she's with us today. Susan Fisher. Okay. Beach Hill. Ah, yes. Lib snuck in on us. How are you, Elizabeth? You may already have one. And let me just say that, and Rick didn't mention the latest book that he's done, about the, I call it the industrial part of Franklin. Yeah. So it's a fascinating book that's changed, and that area of Franklin is changing even as we sit here. So you might go by the Heritage Foundation and pick up a copy of that book, and the monies go right back into the publication program. Bledsoe Sullivan. Ricky? Yeah, there you are. Okay. And the Bonds, Bluegrass, and the Bond Farm. Glad you made it this year, Charles. Didn't have anything better to do. Thank you. Bud's Longview, Dan. And for the first time in a while, we have a representative of the Cannon family. Ed Cannon is here, and we're very glad to have you with us, Ed. Cedar Creek Farm, are the Marlins here? Diane and there you are. Okay. All right. Sending the youngsters up. It's just great to see the different generations here. That is so exciting to see third and fourth generations. And the County Line Farm. Okay, and Crystal Valley. The Gentry Farm. And the German Farm. I know Janice is here, and John. Glen Acres, Sandra and Calvin. Many of you were asking what the oldest farm is, and it would be Glen Acres Farm. 1783, before statehood. Hunt and Beasley, Miss Sparkman couldn't be with us, and the Johnsons couldn't be with us. And Longview. The Luster Farm, Tony is here. Going to send up some of the next generation. Very good, thank you. Lorraine and Mary Bond and the William Steele Farm. Jane, are you here? Good. And the Maple Crest Stock Farm. Yeah, they are here. Very good. Maplewood. John, did you make it? Yeah, all right. Good to see you. And the Nichols, Mark. Okay, all right. Got a couple of little Nichols coming up. Excellent. Do they know how to milk cows too? Working on it? Great. Don't believe any of the Osborns are here. Peaceful Valley. The Wallaces. Is Miss Alene back there? Okay. All right. Pleasant View, Cindy and Alan, are they here tonight? They're probably down at the little one's farm working. And the Poynors. Come back up and get your book. Sherwood Green Farm. Anybody here from the Sherwood Green Farm? Yes, of course. Yes. Yeah, great. Smith Brothers. Jeff's here. Good. And the Sullivan Givens. Valley View. Okay, Valley View. Very good. Westbrook. Don't believe any of the Shorts are here tonight. Okay. And William Steele, none of the Jordans. The Wilsons. Is Ace here tonight? Yeah, great. Good to see you. And the Herberts at Woodland View. Got close so you could get the book tonight. Okay. And also the Hutchinsons, who are friends over in Nolensville, who actually own the only Century Farm in Morgan County, the Powell Farm. But they're working folks. Now, I want to give a plug for, I'm so sorry. Where did you go to? Locust Guard. Okay, Locust Guard Farm, the Rings. I'm so sorry. Did I skip anybody else? I know, it is. Bad. My bad. Glad you're here. Did I inadvertently overlook any other farm? No, I hope not. I want to be sure Judy Hayes gets one of the books. Okay, all right. Okay. Now, I want to put in a plug for the next book, Barns of Williamson County. You may have gotten a letter about May asking you to send in photographs of barns, old, new, large, small. Don't care. Send me some photographs. I'd like to include the Century Farmers in this book. Rick and I have been out scouring the highways and byways for barns that we can see. And I've taken photographs of about 250 barns so far because we want to do a survey of barns in 2019 in Williamson County. So there will be a little book about the size of that one. Maybe you'll get that next year if all goes well. So send me or Rick photos of barns or your historic photos of barns, of your grandparents, of your parents in front of barns. I would really appreciate that a lot. Okay, we're doing so well on time, and Hutchinson is going to come up and give our Thanksgiving before we eat.
Wow, what a wonderful event tonight. Have y'all had a good time? Very good. Let's give Caneta a big hand for organizing all this. Also, let's give our Williamson County Cattlemen's Association a big hand also for providing dinner tonight. We really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And would you now just join me in a time of prayer and worship? Pray with me, please. Dear Jesus, thank you so much for this time together. Thank you for this event that we all enjoy so much. Lord, I thank you for our family farms, Lord, for the heritage of the people that have gone before us to allow us to continue on, Lord. I pray for each home represented here. I pray for healing in their home, encouragement in their home. I pray that you just we've been so blessed to live in such a blessed country, Lord, and we are thankful. I'm thankful for Williamson County. I'm thankful for the state of Tennessee. And God bless the USA. I'm thankful for that, Lord, that we live in a free country. Dear Lord, just bless the food that's been prepared for us. Again, especially double bless the people that have prepared it and are here to serve it for us today. Again, in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Hutch. And speaking of our folks with the Cattlemen's Association, they have a new president this year, Eric Law, and I'd like for him to come up and say just a few words, and then he will direct us as to getting our dinner. Eric?
Good evening. It's definitely an honor to be up here representing the Williamson County Cattlemen Association and talking to y'all, that y'all are here to represent your family farms. It's been in the family for over 100 years in Williamson County, and that's definitely something to be proud of in the growth we have in this county. Agriculture is a big part of this county, and we hope to continue to keep it that way. Some of y'all are members of the Williamson County Cattlemen Association out in the audience, and for ones that don't know what we do, we're a group of cattlemen. We've got about 200 members, and we try to raise money to help the 4-H program with their scholarships. We have a booth down in the fair every year, and we do certain things throughout the year to try to help the kids be able to show animals and help support them. And we're definitely glad that you come out tonight, and we're honored to be able to serve you. Thank you very much, and I guess we're ready to get in line and be served. Hope y'all enjoy it.